So, for some context, I have been stabbed or cut somewhere around 20 times in my life. So, I'll tell you about the first time I ever got stabbed. For a couple years, whenever I was younger, I was homeless. And me and some of the other kids, I mean, they weren't necessarily homeless, they were just fucking degenerates. But, you know, boys, we like to throw hands. So whenever I was younger, me and some of the other kids like started fighting, and me and my best friend at the time, like he had the idea to bet some money because he was poor, but he still had a family and a home. He wanted we wanted to get some of the money so that I could actually afford to get some food and stuff. So it'd be like $1 or $2 we put down on a fight. And since I was the one that could fight between the two of us, it'd be me fighting and he'd just make the bets. So I had a couple fights. People started knowing that I was like kind of tough. And then there's this one kid that he had psychological problems anyway. I knew him from my school. Like, kind of like a weird outcast kid. For lack of a better reference, it's the kind of kid that you'd expect to be a school shooter, to be honest. So one day he came forward and was like, "Oh, I want to fight you." And he put like $10 down, which is more than most people put. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." So threw down $10, and he was a bit smaller than me. Like, I'm not the biggest guy, and even back then I was like a bit smaller, but even so, he was still a bit smaller than me. He was talking so much shit, talking like he had already won the fight. And so, you know, we get to the little space where we usually had the fights. I'm pulling up and whatnot. Fight starts. He walks towards me, like really slowly swings at me with one hand. I just kind of dodge out of the way. He immediately, as I dodged, came in and threw his other hand at me and punched me in the chest. And I felt it. I mean, it felt like a punch. I didn't feel anything different about it. He just punched me in the chest. After that, like, I went in, got him a couple times. Anyway, I got him down. At that point, it was all about money. I didn't want to actually hurt people. So they were down. It was whenever he was on the ground and I went to back up away from him that, like, I felt something more than sweat kind of running down my body. And I look down and I see this little piece of metal sticking out of my chest. And before pulling it out, like, I honestly, after seeing that and seeing just blood coming down from my chest, yeah, I just started seeing red. Like, I don't know still fully what happened. I just know I blacked out. Next thing I remember is these two bigger kids holding my arms and dragging me away. Yeah, I got a first aid kit from somebody, and it only ended up being like that long or so. The kid ended up, he had gotten a little piece of metal and stuck it in between his fingers, and that's whenever he punched me, he stabbed me. So I pulled it out and like kind of dressed it myself because I didn't want to go to the hospital. So I still have a scar that's about 1.5 to 2 inches long on my chest. Yeah, I didn't hear from that kid too much afterwards. But yeah, turns out that was the first time in a good couple of times within the next 2 to 3 years that I'd get stabbed or cut.
2 to 3 years after that incident, you just kept getting stabbed?
Well, I kept fighting. Hell, they're really